We work so you can play.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Warhammer 40k League Battle Report. As always, my name is Jay. I will be the host of this because I'm pretty much hosting all the Warhammer 40k Battle Reports. It's kind of my thing now, 40k Leagues. And as always, I am joined by two familiar faces. You guys should know them well by now, but just in case I'll introduce them anyway. This is...
I'm Gary.
And you play?
Tyranids.
And only Tyranids, basically.
All nids all the time.
Exactly. And of course, this is...
Trevor.
Player of the...
Space Marines.
Specifically...
Imperial Fists.
Even more specifically...
We're doing this again. Okay. Sentinels of Terra.
I was going to say Iron Knights this time.
They look like iron. They look like iron.
Yeah, I would even say they're more like gray and color. Gray Knights? Gray Knight. No, not Gray Knights. No, it's okay. And as always, we've been playing a game of 40k because Tyranids and Iron Knights do not belong in fantasy.
No, the monster.
Well, Knights made of iron might belong. Yeah.
No analogy for fantasy.
No, none, unfortunately. And you guys are playing how many points?
1750.
That's a good sized point game. That's very cool. And we haven't rolled yet to see what type of game it is. So, yeah, well, without further ado, we'll get to the armies and the deployment.
All right, so we'll start off with the 1,500 points, or sorry, 1,750 points of Space Marines. Now, for a full in-depth list, please check out our pre-game show for this particular battle report. And here are all the Space Marines. As you can see, there are a lot of bodies and a teeny tiny whirlwind in the back to take out those Tyranids. And now 1,750 points of Tyranids. As you can see, Gary decided to take a really weird list that's not competitive, but it's going to be fun. With some monstrous creatures, warriors, and gene stealers. So you roll to see what type of game. And it's Emporers Will, so one objective in each deployment zone. Hammer and Anvil deployment. And for night fighting, no night fighting. So they roll to see who goes first. Trevor loses. Gary
All right, so
decides
here's what
to
the
go
battlefield
first.
looks like after deployment. As you can see, each fence line is set up. Both guys are just lined up along their areas, and they're going to run for each other and go for it. It's Emperor's Will, people, and you got to keep that in mind. So what tends to happen in Emperor's Will, very close game. Yes. So we'll see what happens in turn one, or if there's a seizing, there's no scout movement, so we'll see what happens in turn one.
So he tries to seize the initiative, and he fails. So it's Tyranids' turn one. So it begins by moving up his Tyrannifex. And the Trigon Prime. And then the Raveners follow suit. And basically his goal first turn is just to move up. And just get as close as possible. Close the distance to those Space Marines. The Tyranids want to get in close combat, but it's going to be pretty challenging, seeing as the Sentinels of Terra get to re-roll. They have twin guns, essentially, from half range. And that's pretty nasty, as you'll see in this battle report. Plus, as I mentioned, Gary's not taking a very competitive list. And we'll see how these units do in this game. So everyone moves up. Gene Stealers move up as well. And then he tries to shoot the Whirlwind with the Tyrannifex. It hits, pens, but cover save is made because it's behind an Aegis defense line. And then Trigon Prime decides that he wants to run rather than shoot anything that's in range. As fleet, so he gets to reroll it. And then he shoots his Barbed Stranglers from his warriors at the other tank. And nothing happens there. So then he just runs his Gene Stealers up, so once again to close the distance. And now it is Space Marines turn one. Well, since the Tyranids have closed the gap, first tries to cast some psychic. Sorry, he tries to land his drop pod right behind the Gene Stealers. It scatters slightly, but not off the board. Trevor likes to take risks with the board edges. And he pops out the Dreadnought, which is going to be the bane of those Gene Stealers' existence, since it has a twin-linked heavy flamer and a heavy flamer. And next, he moves up his tanks, but first he has to do a second power, so he casts Iron Arm on himself. Goes off, and he rolls 2. So +2 strength, +2 toughness. And then tries to cast Enfeeble on the Raveners. And it goes off too. And Gary does not deny it. So then they start shooting. I started casting Enfeeble as well on the Trigon Prime. and it goes off, and it was not denied either. So the Trigon Prime has also been enfeebled. And next he just moves up all of his tanks to close up that gap, and now it's time to light up the Tyranids. As I mentioned, twin-linked anything bolter from half range, so it's going to be a lot of shooting, a lot of re-rolling, and Tyranids aren't particularly strong against firing, as you're going to see. The Tyrannofex is the only thing with a really decent save, but he does have grav guns, grav cannons on his Centurions. So it's going to be pretty fun to kill that, pretty easy to kill that Tyrannofex with the grav guns because they wound on a 2+, and they're AP2. So next, just as Ascendant tries to close the gap and get all of his guys in as short of range as possible to those Tyranids. He's not afraid of the assaulting since he gets to shoot them from half range, kill a lot of them, and then he gets to Overwatch on them anyway. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So he starts shooting them. He uses Auspex on the Raveners to remove one part of cover, and then he starts shooting his Centurions at the Tyrannofex, but split firing the leader at a different target. He passes his split fire test. So he fires his Tech Marines bolt gun first, hits. And now white is the grav cannon, and red are the bolters. And you're going to see a lot of fire at this particular Tyrannofex. And he hits with actually, he misses with a few of the grav shots, but he gets to reroll to wounds with them, so he's in big trouble. And because of grav amp, he gets to reroll, as I mentioned, and he does 5 wounds alone. And then he rolls his 2-up armor saves, and he passes, so there's 1 wound left on the Tyrannofex. And then he does the rest of the shooting. He's shooting at the Trigon Prime with the other weapons from the Sergeant in the Centurion squad. And Gary fails 1 armor save and rerolls 1, but he's still okay. So 1 wound off the Trigon, and the Tyrannofex is down to 1 wound. And then the Flaming Dreadnought flames the Gene Stealers and kills 3 of them. With the Heavy Flamer, it's really Heavy Flamer, and then with a normal Heavy Flamer kills the other 3. So it's a pretty heavy casualties already. And then the flaming continues. And all the shooting. As you can see, he's just whittling. He's going to start whittling down the Tyranids pretty quickly due to all this fire. And Raveners only have a 5-up armor save. Or sorry, 5-up cover save because the Auspex. And a good chunk of the Raveners are dead anyway. It's down to, I think, 1 or 2 Raveners after all that fire alone. And the firing continues. And of course, he needs 3s and 2s to wound. Right now, Bolter Fire is just really nasty against Raveners. And he passes 2 armor saves, so the 2 Raveners alive are still alive, miraculously. But then fails the other 2. So it's down to, I think, one more Ravener alive in that squad. Then he starts firing at the Warriors, because they're also going to be pretty scary. And gets most of them hit, but as I said, everything's twin-linked from half range. For at least anything that's bolter. And so he rolls his armor saves. And passes. And the rest of them are good. And then he just moves through. He moves up his tank. So then you roll to see what type of objectives they have, because they decided to play Mysterious, and there's nothing of real interest. And he keeps firing at the Trigon. And he fails another wound, so he's on 4 left. And then he starts firing at his heavy weapons, his plasma cannons, at the Tyrannofex. And first one scatters slightly off and misses. And then he rolls his 2-up armor saves. And he fails his armor saves and his cover saves. And the Tyrannofex is killed, and that is first blood. And then with the Whirlwind, he drops a Pie Plate of Doom right on top of the heads of the Warriors. wounds most of them, and ends up actually killing a good chunk of them because they are only 5-up armor, or 4-up armors, so that's pretty nasty on them. And then he tries to assault the Raveners and fails.
Alright, so after one turn, here's what the battlefield looks like. Tyranids have taken some casualties thus far. Yeah, I've stolen a couple models from the good guys, but I gave them back. So, and yeah, so far first blood has been drawn by the Iron Knights, but still tons, and the Tyranids is gone. It kind of blow up. Yeah, we'll see what happens in turn 2.
So now it's time for Gary to respond to that firing with Tyranids turn 2. So he rolls for his reserves. First Gene Stealers come in. Second Gene Stealers do not come in. Third Gene Stealers, the other squad Gene Stealers is dead. So the other one doesn't come in. So rolls for outflank, comes in on Chili's side. Rolls for regeneration, fails both. And he decides to move up. Right now his goal is to close the gap. He really wants to get in close combat this turn and nerf the firing of those Space Marines. They've been so nasty. So he's going to try to assault the Dreadnought with the Gene Stealers. The Warriors are going to try to assault the Marines. And everything basically wants to close that gap. And Gary realized how really deadly those grav weapons are. So he wants to, again, close the gap, get in close combat with them, and destroy the Centurions in close combat since they have no invulnerable save. So he starts firing at them. And yes, he fires his warriors at the Marines. The first set was the Raveners at the remaining bikes. And he actually was able to kill a chunk of Marines with the fire from the warriors. And then the Gene Stealers, they have fleet, so they can run and re-roll their run distance, and they roll 4 inches, so that they're going to just tuck right behind that Aegis defense line to close the gap, as I said. Unfortunately, Gene Stealers are pretty useless in this 6th edition, especially the turn they come in, because they come in, they basically reveal themselves, and then they are allowed to be shot at for a turn before they can do anything. And so they declare their assaults. And the assaults, and then the Overwatch, and the Overwatch alone does a wound, but doesn't do anything really to the Tyranids. And he rolls his distance and rolls a 111. That's pretty nasty. So here's a reroll because of fleet, because a 111 is just not good enough, and he rolls and gets 6 inches, which is not enough either. And then the next assault is declared. Overwatch again. And all the bolter fire on that one Ravener, on those remaining Raveners, this is going to be pretty brutal. And because they're also enfeebled, they have to take dangerous terrain anyway on the Raveners anyway. And it kills the one remaining Ravener who tried to assault in, so they're dead too. Then the Gene Stealers try to assault the Dreadnought, and unfortunately the Twin-Linked Heavy Flamer gets 3, and the non-Twin-Linked gets 1. So as you can kind of predict what's going to happen here, he rolls and kills 4 Gene Stealers out of the 6 on Overwatch. That is pretty nasty. They roll their distance, and they also have fleet again, so they can reroll, but they get 9 inches, which is plenty to get them in close combat with the Dreadnought. And then close combat. Gene Stealers actually hit and rend, and so he rolls the pen rend and only gets a 4, so it's a glance, so he loses a hull point, but unfortunately it's no pen. Then the Dreadnought hits back and whiffs entirely, so that combat will continue. And now it's Space Marine's turn 2. So he tries to cast Enfeeble again, fails but gets a reroll, and fails again because of Shadows in the Warp. Then he tries to cast the next Psychic Power, fails, rerolls, fails again. Then he tries to cast Iron Arm. And he tries to cast Iron Arm with this guy, and actually passes. So then he tries to cast Enfeeble with his other Librarian, fails again. And he rolls for his Iron Arm, gets an extra +1. Now it's time to move up the bikes, close the gap, and destroy the Warriors through shooting. As you've seen, Warriors have a 4+ save, and that is pretty easy to eat through. But first he has to move through terrain with his Librarian and his guys, so he does a bunch of dangerous terrain checks. Actually fails 2, rolls for a save, fails him, and fails feeling pain, so he actually loses his Thunderhammer Storm Shield guy from his squad. That's pretty nasty from simply moving through dangerous terrain with bikes. And here's a little bit of Trevor vision as he moves. This is exactly what Trevor would see as he moves up his Centurions to go take out that Trigon. Right now they're afraid of the Trigon in close combat, but they really want to shoot it and just destroy it from a distance. And then with the rest of them, he wants to close the gap and shoot them from half distance. He flames the warriors. And only gets 1 or 2 wounds, and then the rest of the fire, as I said, it's twinning because of half distance, because rapid fire or bolter drill. And he rolls to wound with the bolters, and manages to get a few more. So he rolls his armor saves, fails 1. So 1 warrior has a wound off it, and then the rest of the fire on the warriors. And he rolls armor saves, and he's okay again. Gary's actually really passing his 4+ save, so he only loses 1 warrior to all that fire. And then the rest of the fire, as you can see, there's going to be a lot of fire on these warriors to whittle them down. The guy in the back is the HQ Warlord, the Warrior Prime, the one with Lash Whips. And he fails a few more, so he loses yet another warrior. And the firing continues. Misses the first round, next set of firing. And he's okay again. He just keeps passing his armor saves, getting very lucky. And then another round of firing at them with bolters. Gotta love the rerolling twin-link bolters. It's pretty nasty against Tyranids, especially with this kind of list. And Gary rolls, and he only loses 1 more warrior because of it. So they're getting whittled down. So then once again, split firing in the squad, which passes. So the lieutenant is going to fire at the Gene Stealers. The rest of them are going to fire at the Trigon Prime since they wound him on a 3. They're basically the perfect example of what grav cannons are really, really good for, is killing high toughness monster creatures. And so he hits the Gene Stealers with the bolter fire, and that's a lot of them. And then wounds a bunch of them, and they're all going to die because they only have a 5+ armor save. So he ends up killing easily almost half the squad right there just from the lieutenant. And then he fires at the Trigon Prime, and you can kind of predict what's going to happen here again. A lot of hits. Grav Amp gets rerolled a wound, and in the end he kills the Trigon alone just due to the Grav guns. So the Trigon is also dead. And then he keeps firing at the Gene Stealers. As I said, with Gene Stealers, they're a big liability in 6th edition since they come on and they can't do anything. You can't do anything the turn you come on. So they just come on and then they get blown away, and then they try to assault and they get blown away some more. So it's a pretty nasty combination. And ends up killing a few more. So that squad is whittled down almost entirely, and that was the big squad of Gene Stealers. And then he decides to drop a pie plate on them with a whirlwind. It hits directly and kills 3 more. So now that squad is now down to 2 out of the original 15. And then he fires another pie plate on them. 1 got hot, and the other one scatters. And he rolls a Signum 1, and that's also scatters off. And he fires the missiles at them. And it's 1 hit. They do their leadership check, and they are good. So then at the Warriors, once again, the Warriors Overwatch. This is the assault. The Space Marines decided to assault the Warriors, figuring just take them out in close combat, tie them up, and destroy them. So Overwatch. And since bikes are toughness 4, they do 2 armor saves, pass them both with Feel No Pain, I believe, and then roll their distance. So he rolls up his saves, and they're both good. And then he rolls his distance and short. And he can't make it, so he declares another assault. Rolls for his distance. Since he can't Overwatch again. This is with the other tech bike, and fails his distance. Ultimately, I think he needed a 10. Or 9 exactly. So he rolls again, and gets an 8 short. And then Jetpack Marine Bike Squad, and they rolled their distance and failed too. So nothing there. So back to the Gene Stealer close combat. They get a few hits. 6s to rend. No rends. Hits back with a Dreadnought and whiffs twice.
So after 2 turns, here's what the battlefield looks like. Tyranids have taken some heavy casualties.
Putting it lightly.
Lightly is heavy casualties. What would be the truth? Very, extremely heavy casualties. Basically, right now, there are those warriors right there on the table. The 2 Gene Stealers fighting the Dreadnought. Both of them are whiffing. And these 2 Gene Stealers right here. Other than that, the Tyranids are in a little bit of a pickle. But they might come back. You never know. Unfortunately, all the Gene Stealers can do next turn is come on and be like, we're here. Nope. But we'll see what happens in turn 3.
So now it's Tyranids turn 3. So we'll see if the Gene Stealers come in. First one comes in. Second one also comes in. So we'll have 2 sets of Gene Stealers come in, just say hi, but they can't really do anything after that. So we'll see what sides they come in. And usually Gene Stealers are cool with the outflanking capabilities when it's hammer and anvil, because the width of the table is greatly reduced. But still, so they run as well, and they come in. They're going to go for that drop pod maybe next turn and stuff. He wants to keep them all together, just keep one target nice and close. And next, the other Gene Stealers, now that they can actually do something, they're going to move up and hopefully assault something. The warriors move up to engage the bikes. And there's what Trevor looks like when the game is going on. So he starts shooting. The bikes pass all their armor saves, and then the Gene Stealers declare their assault. Overwatch, you just reroll their Overwatch. They get the distance, 7 inches, which is playing to get them in close combat with the Centurions. Maybe they'll do some rending and take them down. And then the Overwatch from the bikes kills one of the warriors, rolls their distance, and they're able to get in plenty. And they multi-assault, so they can get both bikes. Oh, sorry, the bikes are in one squadron anyway, so... So then the Gene Stealers, and back to the Gene Stealers close combat, they get a couple hits, some rends, and they actually pen. So they roll on the pen chart, and it is a 6, so it explodes. Then they roll to see if it hurts the Gene Stealers. It goes 3 inches, and it doesn't hurt them, so they move 3 inches away. And then the next close combat with the Centurions. They were able to do 1 wound to the sergeant of the Centurions, and then the rest of them hit back. And unfortunately, those 2 tiny Gene Stealers aren't going to survive very long, since they only have 5 up armor saves. As you can see, he does 2 wounds to them, and they die. So there goes those guys, and they consolidate 6 inches away. Nothing's going well for the Tyranids right now. So to the bike combat, the Warrior Prime goes first. Only gets a couple hits, needs 3s to wound. And since he's Lash Whips, from now on they'll be going at initiative step 1. Anyone in base space with him at least. I got 2 wounds, and because he has a bone sword, goes through armor and kills one of the bikes. And the other one swing at the other bikes. Get 2 hits. 1 wound. He rolls his 3+ armor save, and he'll be okay. And then he hits back. So he loses combat and passes his leadership check on the 1 bike. So combat will continue there. And now it is Space Marines turn 3. Right now, Trevor's goal is just to whittle him down even more due to shooting. Maybe join in with the bike squad. Right now, there's so many juicy targets that he can just take out, and they're all really susceptible to shooting. So he does psychic powers, none of them which are denied. They all get off because they weren't in Synapse range. Right now there aren't many Synapse creatures left on the board, just the Warriors, and the Gene Stealers are leadership 10, and they can get along without Synapse. Next, he's just going to move up all of his vehicles just to get a better line of sight on all those Gene Stealers. Next goal, right now he thinks he can kill those Warriors if he drives all his bikes into combat. So he just wants to kill the Gene Stealers with the rest of the shooting. And the Centurions move up as well. Once again, they're going to maybe get into shooting range eventually of the Gene Stealers. The range is pretty short, so it'll take maybe 1 or 2 turns of moving around, just getting range for them. But once they do, they'll maybe be able to kill them with Bolter Fire and Grav Amps. So they go into the middle. And he tries to fix the vehicle with the other one. So he separates the Tech Marine to go fix that vehicle. I believe one of them was just... Oh, because the... I don't remember. Maybe we got immobilized earlier in the game. And then he shoots the Gene Stealers, kills one of the 2 from that remaining squad. and then passes his armor save. And then they jump into close combat with the bikers and the librarian, and now you can kind of predict that the warriors are going to be in a little bit of trouble with all those extra attacks and a lot of attacks, and some will ignore armor, and it's going to be crazy. I believe there's a challenge, and it's accepted between the two warlords. And so the Space Marines will get a lot of attacks in, as will the few remaining warriors, but alone they were able to kill one of the warriors on the first range of attacks, then even more attacks, and they keep just rolling with both sides of attacks. So far, only warriors have died. And in the end, the warriors don't do anything to the Space Marines, and the Space Marines kill all of the warriors but the
After 3 turns, here's what the battlefield looks like. As you can see, not that many Tyranids left on the board. I think 6 Space Marines have died, or maybe 7. 7 Space Marines have died. That's not too bad.
Yeah.
Tyranids are fighting strong. They're still alive. That's all I can say, and we'll see what happens in turn 4.
So now it's Tyranids turn 4. Once again, Gary just moves up the remaining Gene Stealers. They have to go for objectives. They have to go kill stuff, because right now there's not that many points of Tyranids left on the board, so they're going to go attack the drop pod and destroy it. Hopefully it doesn't explode and kill them. And then the assaults. There is Overwatch, I believe, from the tank. The guys inside the tank, and they kill one. I believe that was allowed. And then the Gene Stealers attack the Rhino. They get a lot of attacks in, but we missed with about half of them, unfortunately. They have Sighting Talents, so they get to reroll 1s. And then they need 6s to pen. And they roll 3 and a 1. So it's still alive, unfortunately, and 1 hull point left. And then they attack the drop pod. And they only roll a 1, which wreck. So it is essentially wrecked, and that's gone. And then back to the last combat, there's a cheering section, so they'll get to reroll one of these ones against the Warlord. So the Tyranid Prime hits first, gets 2 wounds. He fails his 2 invul saves on his Warlord, the Librarian, and passes both Feel No Pain, so he's okay. And then hits back and gets 2 wounds, and the Warrior Prime is down to 1 more wound, and it is Space Marines turn 4. Trevor now has the Tyranids, unfortunately, on the ropes. So his goal is again move up the tanks. He has Psychic Powers, and Iron Arm goes off. Oh, sorry, not Iron Enfeeble, but he's denied by the Gene Stealers. Actually, it's kind of fun. He tried to enfeeble the Gene Stealers and gets off. It's pretty funny. And he jumps out his guys out. They're gonna probably shoot up and kill those Gene Stealers, because there's Gene Stealers die to Bolter Fire pretty easy since they're a 5-up armor save. And then the next guys get out of their tank, and Centurions move up to maybe get a better shot off next turn, because they're slightly out of range still. And then all that Bolter Fire alone kills that squad of Gene Stealers, as predicted. And then he shoots the other squad of Gene Stealers. And hits with, actually not many of them. He whiffs on a bunch of shots, but he gets to reroll because twin linked from half distance. And wound, so he goes to ground for a 6-up cover save, passes 1, and the 2 of them are dead. And then the rest of the fire, then he tries to fire at the towers, but doesn't do anything to them. These towers are for tertiary points for the league, nothing for the actual game itself. And doesn't do anything to either of them. So he shoots the grav amps at them, and doesn't do anything either. And with all the bolter fire, he hits, and then doesn't do anything either. So the towers are still going to be alive and well for the next turn. But he keeps trying to shoot at them. And he gets one hull point off, then back to the close combat. Tyranid Warrior gets to go first because of Lash Whips. Or sorry, Tyranid Prime. Whiffs his attacks, gets 1 wound. He has a 6+ invul. Fails it, but it's a 5+ Feel No Pain. And fails it too. So he loses a wound. And then he actually dies. So the Warlord kills the Warlord in a challenge. And then the rest of them pile in. They'll probably be able to outnumber him next turn because he's only
So after 4 turns, here's what the battlefield looks like. As you can see, not that many Tyranids left on the board. Those Gene Stealers, and a Tyranid Prime.
1-1.
Besides that, Space Marines are looking like they're kind of owning this game, but we'll see what happens in turn.
So now it's Tyranids turn 5. There's not much for the Tyranids to do, so he moves up that one tiny squad of Gene Stealers towards the Marines, because they aren't probably going to survive this game right now. You probably tell that they're going to be in a little trouble. So he tries to assault in. They overwatch back with the Gene Stealers. And of course, twin linked. So even with 6s, you can still get a bunch of hits with the twin linking. He manages a few hits, rolls to wound, and kills only one, actually. He was very lucky. Gary was very lucky with his rolls. Rolls distance. He has fleet, so he can re-roll it. Fails the first one. He needs, I believe, a 9. And rolls a 7. So it's just shy. And then back to the close combat. He challenged the Librarian. The Librarian denied the challenge. And then they get all their attacks in. The Warrior Prime gets to go first, but whiffs. And then all the attacks back on the Warrior Prime. As I said, he only has 1 wound left. So he rolls all his to wound rolls. And he kills the other Warlord. So now it's Space Marines turn 5. The only thing left on the board is that one tiny squad of Gene Stealers. So Trevor's goal is simply to first destroy those towers for the tertiary goals of the league, and then destroy the Gene Stealers to win the game. Since he has Slay the Warlord and First Blood, and there's really nothing Gary can do. He has so many more scoring units than Gary left, and all Gary has are those 5+ armor save Gene Stealers, who are going to die, pretty much. So he moves up all of his units. He can't get Line Breaker. He's just trying to get insurance so that he can definitely kill those towers and then kill the Gene Stealers. Just make sure he can and end it now. He doesn't want it to go to a 6th turn. So he starts shooting at the towers. First thing, shoots at the closer tower that we can see. And actually manages a bunch of hits, but he gets to reroll all those misses. And he needs 3 6s to kill it, and he gets them. And it's dead. Because each of them has 3 hull points. So he kills the first one, shoots the second tower, which only has 1 hull point left, and kills that too. And now it's time to finish off the Gene Stealer, so he flames it, hits only the front 2, and then shoots the remainder of guns of the squad. So and as you can see, he needs 3s to hit, reroll to hit, and he'll need 4s to kill. So these Gene Stealers are in big trouble. And so he gets that many wounds, and the squad is dead. Basically, is completely jabled, as I would say. So it is a great game, a hearty handshake between the 2 competitors, and it is a Space Marines victory. So thank you very much for watching this battle report, and if you'd like to see another exciting battle report from the MiniWarGaming League, click on the link below for a free 7-day trial to the MiniWarGaming Vault. Not only will you get access to this battle report, but you also get to see many other Warhammer 40k battle reports, as well as just some awesome wargaming material. So until next time, this is Jay saying, happy wargaming everyone.